This is Air Talk on KPOO 89.5 FM in San Francisco. This is Arab Talk with Jess and Jamal. I'm Jess Hannan.
And I'm Jamal Dejani.
Jamal, we have a fantastic show today. We're going to be talking about a lot of critical items right now. One of the things we're going to talk about is an interview that I did recently on AJ Plus, Al Jazeera Plus, about Palestinian political prisoners. There's actually quite a bit going on right now with Palestinian political prisoners. We're going to kind of review that a little bit. And of course, you know, this is the meeting of the United Nations General Assembly, and we can't not talk about the Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's kind of crazy presentation, as usual, not even mentioning the question of Palestine, Palestinians, anything to do with Palestine, completely erasing anything having to do with Palestine at the General Assembly. We'll talk about that. And Jamal, we're going to talk a little bit about the 60-minute interview with Israeli pilots. Do we call this whitewashing, greenwashing? I don't know what to call it, but it seems like 60 minutes.
I call it just poor journalism, because 60 Minutes host did not have a follow-up question to some of the comments we're talking about.
Why don't you just be a mouthpiece for the Israeli military, CBS 60 Minutes? But we'll talk about that. But before we get to that, we're going to have a really great kind of interview that you did with the virtuoso Palestinian Arab violinist Georges Lammam. He's going to be featured on a multimedia theatrical travelogue called Oriental Meets Occidental on October 20th to 22nd. At the Dan Mission Theater in San Francisco. What an incredible musician, Jamal.
Well, we're going to give you all listeners and viewers a taste of this concert, because George will be right here shortly, and he'll hopefully perform some of the pieces.
I hope he does.
They will be presenting at the concert. So let's watch the interview. Arabic violin virtuoso Georges Lammam has a repertoire spanning a wide range of Arabic music, from classical to contemporary songs. Over his career, he has performed with most well-known singers throughout the Middle East. He tours internationally and has recorded numerous CDs. On October 20th to 22nd at the Dance Mission Theater in San Francisco, George will be featured in the multimedia theatrical travelogue. The performance takes you on his musical journey as an Arab immigrant. A rich story unfolds through music as well as dance and poetry. Each destination adds a new layer of spice and complexity to his artistry. We're honored to have George in the studio, and joining us also his wife Jeanette and his theater writer and Galjor. Welcome all to Arab Talk, Jeanette, and also, of course, George and Anne.
Thank you for having us.
So I just want to start by asking you about this musical journey, because it sounds like you're a musical autobiography. Talk about this.
The whole idea of this show came from applying for San Francisco Grant of the Arts, and so when we were elected, so then we sat down and decided what we want to do. So the best way to do it is to have the story of my journey with the music from Beirut to San Francisco, and we're still working on it and the details until now. And so it's telling the story of how I grew up, grow up in Lebanon as a refugee, Palestinian refugee, and went from being in Lebanon, have a chance to move to the Gulf region, to United Arab Emirates, and from there to Miami. From Miami, came to San Francisco and settled here in San Francisco. So my music changed from everywhere I went. The style of it, and meeting different musicians from different parts of the world, so this would be the story, telling it, and in a musical and also in poetry, and reading the story of my life and my movement with my career and my life.
So now when you talk about Palestinian refugee, of course you were born in Lebanon. But I remember talking to you before once, and then at one point, you haven't been to Palestine, and then you went to Palestine. How did that go for you?
It was very, very emotional to go back to the root where my family came from, because I didn't have the chance until a younger age, because of course my status and my I wouldn't be able to go. But with my American passport, I was able to go and visit the beautiful land my parents came from.
Did you get to see where did they live? Their neighborhood,
I did
their home?
experience, actually. Maybe Janet can tell you that story, because it's very emotional. Because in Haifa, which is where my parents were born, I was in a cruise ship and it stopped in Ashdod, and me and Janet, we said, let's see if there's anybody from my family left there. It didn't take me much, actually. We want to
Well, his father, before we left, his father gave us the street address in Haifa where they lived. So once we were in Haifa, we had a cab driver, and because he was a Russian Jew who immigrated to Palestine in 1951, he remembered the name of the street because the street names have been changed from Arabic to Hebrew. So
Right.
had we not just by chance had this cab driver, we would never have found the street. So he encouraged us to ask around for family, you know, and so George did. He'd be shouting to people up in their balconies or whatever, and people said, go see, what was his name, one of the Abus, and he said, he's always on the corner. Well, he wasn't on the corner, so George just knocks on the door of the
I
house.
started knocking on the door.
And come on in, here's the tea, here's the dates, and they begin to try to connect to the Lammam family. Well, in a very short period of time, although it took some levels, go to the shop and unlock this, lock that, ended up, this man said, you have to see my mother. You have to meet my mother. So we walked to his mother's flat, and his mother was George's father's first cousin. Their fathers
Wow.
were brothers.
Mm-hmm.
And how did you feel, George? I mean, I know
It was an unbelievable feeling, yeah.
Were you shocked
I was shocked, and also right away I called my father, who was still with us, and he said, "Of course, yeah, I know her. I grew up playing on the streets with her." She was like 92,
She was
right?
92,
yeah.
Nahla, and she remembered George's father.
Yeah.
They were first cousins.
I took pictures and everything, and I sent it to my dad, and yeah, so that was amazing feelings to find somebody still live there.
Yeah, it must have been an emotional, I would say.
Very, very emotional, yeah.
Very emotional. Did you feel, I mean, I would say it's more like a roller coaster, right?
Yeah.
You
Because
get to-
also when I grew up as a refugee in Lebanon, you don't have any chance to go and visit, and I felt I did favor to my parents by just going there, because they never went back, and they both of them are gone now. So I felt a connection.
So when we talk about, of course, this is the connection that came later on in life. That's your roots. You know, you started there, but then there is the influence from Lebanon, and then coming to the United States, and of course, performing in the Gulf. So for that journey, Anne, I mean, you have to create. I mean, you're the theatrical writer. How do you put that into theater? You know, to me, maybe it's easier to write it down, but how do you deliver it to the audience to tell that story?
Well, I felt quite a responsibility on this one, Jamal. So first of all, it's a musical journey. So the text, the narration provides context, for each place that George lives in, from Beirut to Dubai, Miami, and then San Francisco. So it's transition, and it also provides context. And also you'll see how he's going to pick up each of these musical influences as he moves from city to city. And so that's all the text does. This is a musical journey, and the music and the power of the music speaks for itself.
So when we talk about the power of music and the influence, talk a little bit about how each, should I say, because this is a travelogue, you call it travel. So how about each stop in your life or each home in your life influence your music? When we talk about Lebanon, the Gulf, the United States, and so on, how did that alter or improve your musical career?
Growing up in Lebanon, Lebanese have different styles than the Gulf region, which is, we call it Khaliji region. The phrases, the rhythm, they change. So I actually, when I growing up in a music family, my father was a movie producer, my mother was a singer. So actually, all my brothers are musicians too. So growing up listening to Levantine area of the music there is, as you know, it's different than the Gulf region. So growing up in Lebanon, I observed that style of music. Mostly influenced me. So I grew up actually playing classical Arabic music from Egypt and Lebanon, as you know, the legend Muhammad al-Wahhab and Kulthum and others, Farid al-Atrash. So this is the way actually I grew up with the music. Moving to United Arab Emirates, where actually I have the chance to start my music career there and learning violin, influenced me to this style of the Khaliji music. Actually, I played 2 years with kind of, they say, the National Orchestra of Dubai. So I played with local singers from there, which they have the Khaliji style. It gives me the ability to learn this different style of music. And actually, I created my own band in Dubai called the Golden Stars Band. We started playing in every, as you know, in Dubai those days in the 70s, everything, all the entertainment was in 5-star hotels, big, huge nightclubs, and you play there. So from age 16, I started performing. Created my own, after 2 years playing with the National Orchestra, I created my own band and started playing music. I get a lot of experience by playing that. And I got a chance to move from there to come to Miami, where I met also some Arab musicians there, and specifically actually from the Arabic church in Miami. There was Arabic church, it was a kanuni player and a singer from Aleppo, where they really kept the tradition of the Arabic music going. I was very happy to meet them because they helped me a lot actually start my career in the United States in a way, so introduced me to the community. We started actually playing more classical Arabic music there because everybody wants to hear that style in the diaspora. And after that, I got the opportunity to come to San Francisco, where the diversity here is huge. I started thinking about learning other styles of music but start being invited to different groups to play with, and met Latinos, met even my producer who was married to amazing Pakistani singer Rifat Sultana. Met Latinos Navias, where it's going to also be in the show. So all my career is putting all the what happened in my career in this show, and the styles of changing the music from everywhere I went. So get influenced.
And Jeanette, how did you join that journey? And how did you meet George?
Well, I met George through music, actually. I'm a musician, and I also had a passion before I met George for Arabic culture, both music and dance. Even I studied some instruments, studied the music theory of Arabic music. And a friend of mine said there's some new musicians that came to the East Bay in this Arabic nightclub. So I went there with them. And that's when I met George. He newly arrived. He was on contract. And right away, I knew he had a special talent, a special skill for communing to all of us through music. It was quite extraordinary.
I remember talking to you before, George, when you had the Navia with you and performed on the show. But you also played outside this country. You went to Latin America.
Yeah, I got opportunity to tour with them. Eddie, which is going to be in my show, he plays an instrument called charango. He's from Bolivia. And they own actually a place here, which is we do live music in their city called Peña Pachamama. I started doing my own shows there, but then I started playing with them little by little. They said, "Oh, come play with us," and I started liking playing Latin music. And then I recorded with them. One of the albums were nominated for a Grammy. Latin Grammy, yeah, folkloric Latin Grammy, and they said the Minister of Culture in Bolivia invited us to go on a tour. Do you want to come with us? Told him, of course, I would love to. It was amazing we went to 6 different cities in Bolivia, and Ednavia is so well known there. So we got so much recognition, and I love being in Bolivia. I'll tell you, we did maybe 28 TV interviews before and after the shows, and the media was a big part of it too. So going to Latin America was quite an experience.
Well, that was my next question, because I feel that the music blends well with Arabic music, you know.
Well, if you take especially Gabriel studied in Spain, and the influence of the flamenco music. Arabs being in Spain for 800 years, and this brought also the influence. But also I like it because I wanted also to do something different with my career. I wanted to try something, explore different styles of music. And as you hear in my recording, there's actually that thing. I thought to myself, I want to record something, I have to have my signature, which is mixture of the two cultures together, creating my own sound. Step away from kind of the classic Arabic I grew up with, but in the meantime, it's still there, and you can hear it through my recordings.
You should go next to Chile. I was like surprised, like many years ago, that Chile, there is probably 400,000 Palestinians who live in Chile.
Actually,
and most of them come from one little village, which is Beit Jala. And Beit Jala is next to Bethlehem. And, well, we don't have 400,000 Palestinians living in Beit Jala. We never had that. And everyone, because I've had interaction with a lot of people from Chile in different conferences, and I will ask the first person, "Oh, I'm from Chile. Where are you from? Where did your parents come from?" And they'll say, "Beit Jala." The next one, Beit Jala. And it's...
Actually, it's funny because
it's amazing for you to go there and perform.
Yeah, actually, it's funny because a couple of years ago, there's this Chilean guy who contacted me. He's Palestinian, born in Chile, and he's a keyboardist player. He said, "I just moved to the Bay Area, and I've heard about you. I want to meet you, and if there is an opportunity to play together." And I met with him. He doesn't speak any Arabic, no. But he plays those classic Arabic pieces. I was mesmerized by him. His name is Karim Bshara. He is actually from Chile, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably your next part of your journey, you know. So the show again is on October 20th, 21st, and 22nd. It's a matinee. Where can people buy tickets for the show?
The tickets can be purchased at dancemissiontheater.org. They have a ticketing portal there. I think that's where you get them.
Well, before I ask you, I want to end the show by having you take us into a journey with Kulthum. But first, tell us what's next. I know it's hard to ask people when they have a big event coming. What do you feel like? Where is the next journey going to be?
Well, I'm hoping actually maybe to take this show on the road and do it in different places in the United States. Hopefully we can find sponsors because there's a lot to put together. So we're just gonna take it step by step. We'll see. But I'm always gonna be, and actually, yeah, talking about music, it's gonna be 4 new compositions gonna be played on this show, which is represent this movement of where I moved from. And will be soon will be a CD, will be on the CD released hopefully maybe before the end of the year or beginning of 2024 will be a new album coming out.
So take us home.
All right.
The show is going to be in the Mission Dance Theater, October 20th, 21st, and 22nd. Beautiful, beautiful, bravo. Again, the show, don't miss the show. Go online again, what's the site?
dancemissiontheater.org.
dancemissiontheater.org.
Also, you
October-
could get tickets at Eventbrite. That's the ticketing portal,
That's another
Eventbrite.
place. October 20th, 21st, and 22nd in San Francisco at the Mission Dance Theater. Jeanette, Anne, and of course, George, thank you for coming on Arab Talk.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for having
Thank you.
That's the face and the voice of virtuoso violinist, incredible Georges Lammam, who's going to be featured at a multimedia theatrical travelogue called Oriental Meets Occidental on October 20th to 22nd at Dance Mission Theater in San Francisco. What an incredible musician, Jamal. What an incredible person.
Well, we encourage everyone to go to that event. We've announced it several times during the interview, and so hopefully you'll, especially now, people are going out just, they're kind of tired of the lockdown, the COVID lockdown, so hopefully everyone would go out there. So moving on just to your interview, because I want to ask you about this, AJ Plus, that's Al Jazeera Plus, interviewed you about Palestinian prisoners and the hunger strikes. Tell us about it.
Yeah, Jamal. It's, I think as many of our listeners and viewers know, there are over 5,000 men, women, and children who are imprisoned in the Israeli military prison complex. They're subjected to harsh interrogations like torture. They're denied access to attorneys. They're denied access to their families. They're denied access to any kind of basic rights that prisoners are entitled to under international law. And they continue to be kind of put in these awful situations. And there's a long history of Palestinian prisoners engaging in hunger strikes, as you know, to kind of confront the horrific conditions under which they suffer. And many Palestinian prisoners, Jamal, as we know, are detained indefinitely without ever being charged, ever noticing their charges. And they just are detained for months, years, and decades at a time. So what typically happens is that in order to confront the situation, they go on hunger strike. So right now, there's about 1,000 Palestinian prisoners that are going on a hunger strike to protest the awful conditions that they're put under the Israeli military establishment. The conditions are pretty bad, Jamal. Let's just say this, that they are denied access to their families. They're put under these harsh conditions, which are tantamount to torture, and they are not being allowed to see the charges. I mean, this is the fundamental thing that any prisoner is granted. They need to know what they're charged with, and they are denied that, as well as access to an attorney. Well, enough is enough. And, just to remind our listeners, Adher Adnan in May of 2023 died from a hunger strike. This Palestinian prisoner died from a hunger strike under Israeli prison conditions. And so this is no joke. This is a serious problem. It's being done at this time to call for worldwide attention to the plight of the Palestinian prisoners. The one thing that I do want to say just quickly about this, and I said this in my interview on Al Jazeera Plus, is that you have a system of control with the occupation in general for all Palestinians, right? That system of control gets transplanted and turbocharged within the prison system. So the matrix of control, controlling people physically, emotionally, geographically, psychologically, is just turbocharged in the Palestinian, among Palestinian prisoners under their Israeli captors. So the occupation goes from outside prison to a intense and more virulent and more disturbing form of it inside the prison. It's just another form of the occupation, Jamal, being extended from outside to inside the prison experience for Palestinian prisoners.
And according to some reports, at the end of June 2023, Israel was holding 4,499 Palestinians in detention or prison on what it defines security grounds. And that's exactly what you're talking about. They're not granted any legal representation. They don't know, they can't have access to the witnesses who have accused them of these so-called security grounds. I want to ask you one more question quickly about this. We know about the physical toll that inflicts on the prisoners. What's the psychological torture part of it?
Yeah, well, that's a really important point, and most people are misunderstand the devastating impact of the prison experience for prisoners, especially Palestinian prisoners. They think it's the physical toll, which is devastating, because people do have long-term physical manifestations that are detrimental to health. But what people typically neglect are the psychological or traumatic impact on Palestinian prisoners who are isolated from their families, who are typically isolated from one another, who do not have access to the outside world, and are treated inhumanely in such a way that is unlike any other prison experience. And what I'll say, Jamal, is that the Israeli prison experience makes Guantanamo Bay look like summer camp, and the impact on Palestinian prisoners is lifelong in terms of the psychological impact, the insomnia, the difficulty sleeping for the rest of their lives, the depression, the anxiety, the traumatic reliving of the experience in the prison. In prison is it's lifelong and it's devastating.
Moving on to our next story, Jess. Everyone
Jamal,
remembers.
The only thing missing is the graphic, right? The only thing missing is the graphic of the Ba.
Yeah, well, I was going to mention, people probably last remember when he went on the podium and had his show and tell the graphic of the bomb about Iran's so-called nuclear bomb. And that was how many years ago that this happened? And he was saying Iran's going to have a nuclear bomb like tomorrow, you know, or the day.
2 weeks.
In 2 weeks. So anyways, so this time is his prop was a map that claimed to depict Israel in 1948. The map gave all of the land between the river and the sea to Israel. So Netanyahu's map that he showed at the UN General Assembly wiped away Palestinians, wiped away Palestine, wiped away Palestinian rights to the land and the historical geographical reality. And he went on, of course, in his monologue, which I want to point out because people see all the pictures of him showing the map, but they don't show a different angle, which I posted on Twitter for those who are interested to go to my Twitter account, Jamal Dajani, and they'll see that the room is like 80% empty.
Empty, right?
Empty, just. Yeah. So that's what kind of irritating, again, the failure of mainstream media to show that most of the delegates boycotted his presentation. But anyway, you know, here we go again, as they say every time. So what I say, this was a good presentation as far as I'm concerned, because perhaps at the 23rd hour, it will be a wake-up call to those who drank the Kool-Aid of Oslo and the so-called two-state solution.
That's exactly right, Jamal. I think that's a really good point, because the Hasbaristas wanted to twist what was happening in New York. The mainstream media failed to point out the hundreds, if not thousands, of people that were protesting Netanyahu at the United Nations in New York. He chose to talk about Saudi Arabia and this rapprochement with Saudi Arabia and the Arab world, completely neglecting, negating, and being in denial about the question of Palestine. The media coverage has been, as usual, Jamal, pretty embarrassing. It seems like, and this gets to our next topic about the, CBS 60 Minutes interview with Israeli pilots. The mainstream media becomes a mouthpiece, becomes just an extension of the Israeli Hasbarista, and really missing the boat on these really important kind of contextual and reality-based things about what's happening in the apartheid state right now.
To put this into context, just so when you talk about 60 Minutes, this is a 60-minute segment. They've had, I believe, 4 Israeli pilots with Leslie Stoll reporting on Israel, and these are Israeli helicopter pilots who shoot missiles into Palestinian homes, killing children, and now they're talking about moral values, right? And here is the interesting part. One of the pilots, Shira Etting, her name I think is Shira Etting, and she says, and I'm quoting here, "I was a combat helicopter pilot. If you want pilots to be able to fly and shoot bombs and missiles into houses, knowing they might be killing children, they must have the strongest confidence in the people making those decisions." And of course, that's what I said about the bad or poor journalism. Stoll did not ask a follow-up question. She did not push back against the claim that killing Palestinian children just is a moral action. I mean, think, just like you have to watch that segment. I had to watch that segment 10 times, and she just says it casually, like really
disturbing.
Yeah.
No, it was completely disturbing. Leslie Stahl has been a shill for the Israeli apartheid government for years, Jamal. And 60 Minutes likes to brand itself as this, independent, cutting-edge, investigative journalism. But when it comes to the military and the Israeli military and the immoral, illegal crimes they've committed against Palestinian civilians, it never gets mentioned. How many wars in Gaza? how many deaths of Palestinian children. And you're right, Jamal. Lesley Stahl completely forgets. Well, I don't think she forgets. She completely ignores and does not push back on this helicopter pilot who admits that they fire missiles into buildings that could kill children and women.
These pilots have killed hundreds of children in Gaza in recent years by firing missiles at apartment buildings, at residential areas, dropping bombs on residential areas. Numerous international human rights organizations have called these actions war crimes. They've been called as war crimes. One pilot, I remember this, I don't know how long ago, but pilot Jonathan Shapira stopped flying such missions because his Air Force commander told him that Israel would never employ the same policy of targeted assassinations, and that's what Israel puts it under, targeted assassinations, if Jewish civilians were in the apartment buildings. Because that's the cover. They always say, oh, we're going after Hamas leaders and so forth, knowingly that the apartment building is full of children, women, elderly, and so forth, and yet they shoot those missiles on them. And if you follow the rest of the interview, she had asked one question, brief question about the occupation, and which, just focused on the demands of the protesters, basically.
Jamal,
like, why are
you know what the real
protesting?
war crime is? Lesley Stahl is the war crime. Her journalism, lack of journalistic integrity is the war crime, Jamal. Giving voice to these individuals without questioning them and challenging them, that's the war crime. It's a
Well, think about it. It was actually this episode of 60 Minutes had two stories. One story was about Ukraine and the heroic action of the Ukrainian people defending themselves against Russian occupation. The next story, which should have been about Palestinian, Israeli occupation of Palestine and Palestinians defending themselves against the occupation, it was about the moral decision of these pilots, like, because they don't have confidence in their government, but they don't have a problem killing
children.
Palestinian children if they had confidence in the government.
Yeah, well, the moral bankruptcy of 60 Minutes is put on full display, Jamal. And that juxtaposition, as you said, is even more painful. That some people are allowed to fight against the occupation of their land, but others are not.
You've been listening to Arab Talk on KPOO San Francisco 89.5 FM. Go to our website, arabtalkradio.com, to download the latest episodes, and we'll see you next week.
See you next week.